Hi everyone, welcome to Sedaye Daneshjoo. This is Yagoubi.
Hello, this is Ida Nikja.
Today we're going to talk about social media presence and professionalism for students. This is a question that when I was in high school, when I was in college, I would see a lot of information on it online, on Reddit, on Twitter, and a lot of people were concerned that, does my social media presence matter? Like do I need to make my profile private if I'm applying for a big school? Do I need to be uh, posting certain things and not other things? And how selective you have to be with your social media presence? This is a question that a lot of us have had, and I have had personally. And today we're gonna go through some questions and see if there is a metric that we can use to tackle this problem and to make our professional life more smoother. Let's start by this kind of question. Does social media presence even matter for a student in the professional setting?
Um, Immediately, my first thought is, yes, it does matter. I think that your social media presence, it impacts it's part of your identity. You're revealing a bit of your personality, what things you like and what things you enjoy. And you want to be able to have a social media for making those connections with your friends. It's just fun, and I think especially most students, we're always constantly using social media. It's like a big part of our generation, and there needs to be that balance of what things do you enjoy and what things are a bit not okay or don't really reflect that professionalism that you I guess hope to have. And yeah, definitely I think it is important, and it does play a big role.
Uh, I think this is a good point that having a social media profile or posting online about things you're passionate about, it's a huge part of that person's identity. And I know a lot of people in my class and my family members uh, who use this as a platform to teach people about things, to show what they're passionate about. And I think it's a very beautiful space to uh, show your identity, show what you're passionate about, and try to use it as another method through which you can communicate with people. And but that makes this social media a very nuanced position, because there are some things that are true when you're talking to people in person, and the kind of like body language cues you get from them, you can kind of tell, like, oh, like, is this being received well? Do I need to explain myself? That's where social media can be a little bit different, because when you're posting something online, yes, like, you mean it in a certain way, or like, if you like a post, if you share a post, um, it you read it in a certain way and you took some sort of interpretation, but that doesn't really mean it's going to be received the same way. And I think it's a very, very nuanced position that puts people in. Because if you're talking to people in person, you can get those clues, but and you can explain yourself. But if it's something that you're posting online, um, you're not gonna have control over it. So whatever way it gets received by people, that's how you need to deal with it. And it I believe that this creates a big challenge for people, and it makes us having to be extra careful when we're sharing things, when we're posting things. And this is the part that I want to bring this story that recently happened to a medical student at Mayo Clinic. This person posted a very horrible video on Instagram. This person was a relatively well-known influencer and a student who was like regularly posting medical things and like trying to make jokes and stuff. And over a couple of the posts, there was a pattern emerged that the person was being disrespectful to patients. The person was probably trying to make a joke, and in their mind, they probably thought that this was an okay joke to make. However, it was not received that way, and it wasn't that way. And I think this is a very, very prime example of how you mean things is totally different. It could be totally different from the way it is received. So that makes us try to be more careful with what we post online and how we are present online. Now, another question that comes in here is like, do I need to be like overly clean about this? Do I need to be going through every little detail of what I do online or not?
Yeah, that's an interesting story you mentioned, and I know who you're talking about, and I've seen the videos, and I think it goes into, like at what point are you crossing the line, and interesting enough, like, what ended up happening to that person is they ended up getting expelled completely from school. And what year were they in? They were
the fourth year. So
wow.
They were about to match into medical residencies this year, and they weren't able to.
Wow, so that just shows like the consequences of not being able to have that, I think, discernment involved on what is okay and what is not okay. And in that case, their sense of humor was completely inappropriate and not okay. And I think there's a lot of different factors to think about and definitely play a role in. And what you talked about earlier, how it lands, is also very important. Sometimes, like, what you may say is completely appropriate and it's fine, but it could be read in like a sarcastic tone, or it could be read, that tone matters. And having those emojis on there is definitely very helpful to like sort of express like what tone you're trying to communicate in, whether you're, being sarcastic or serious or happy or anything like that. And I think in those circumstances where you see and hear these stories about how people in these professional settings, they're in their 4th year of medical school and they're posting completely inappropriate content, that is just, shows the impact on how important it is to be aware of your social media presence. And I think in that case, like, that person really needed to look inward and really evaluate their own character and like what, like, I guess their morals are. And I think it's always important to, when you are posting on social media, you sort of have like a third person view of what you may post, sort of like going in and just thinking, well, if a complete stranger looks at this, like, how would they probably feel? And that's like not easy, because it requires you to be able to like step outside of your own perspective and try to, like, I guess, sort of think about how other people might perceive it. And I think, yeah, in situations like that, like, man, I really think that I think that they kind of deserved it, because I saw the videos, they were completely inappropriate. And there's some instances where someone might not exactly like go that far. They might sort of break a rule. I saw another social media post where someone posted a little part of their medical school interview. The clip was just like, I guess, someone saying, welcome to blank blank medical school interview. But online they got a bunch of backlash and comments saying, you signed a very important document saying you're not going to record and you're going to follow those rules. And I guess like to some people it may seem like, oh, well, they didn't post like the questions or they didn't post anything else. But I think being aware of, you know, what like in that situation, being aware that, you know, you made that promise and you signed that paper saying you wouldn't do this. So any part of that really can come off, you know, wrong. I think it just depends on what the school thinks about it. But, you know, making risks like that for your, you know, overall, you know, academic or career is just, I think, not worth it. I think having that thought process of, okay, like, am I breaking any immediate rules? Is this in line with, you know, proper good morals and ethics? And just, I guess, having that perspective of, you know, if I have this post like broadcasted behind me on like a billboard or anything, will anyone really get upset? Or like, well, how will it come across? Will it be helpful, positive, and useful, or will it be taken the other way?
Yeah, that's a very very sad story and very bad incident of this sort of inability to distinguish what to post and what not to post. Um, and this brings into question what is the line? What is like what's the line that should never be crossed? I know you touched on a couple of these points, but what are the lines that like the red crosses? Like you can't cross that line when
Yeah.
you're trying to post something online. Um, and I think a couple of the big ones are anything that would be racist, anything that could be sexist, anything that could be discriminatory against a certain group of people. Uh, Anything of that sort is going to be a no-no from the beginning. And like I feel like that should be the first filter. And if this person had thought about this kind of red line, they wouldn't have posted this. So I think this first filter is like the most important, and then after that comes, oh, how do I want to be perceived by people? Do I After that comes, oh, like, do I want to be perceived as someone who's a partier, or as someone who studies a lot, someone who is a very avid like gym goer, and it's, I think, after this, like these red lines, then you can be like, okay, what do you want your image to be? What kind of person, what type of person do you want to be online? Uh, do you have any other?
Yeah, no, definitely. I think there is that like the area where are you crossing a red line or not? And once, you know, that's like sort of out of the way, what comes next is really like, what are you trying to show? What are you trying to, you know, show everyone? Are you just posting for yourself for fun? Are you just, you know, like you said, gym goals, or like what you're eating, or, you know, like where'd you go hike and things like that?
Restaurant?
Yeah, restaurants or giving reviews. I've seen a lot of those, and so it's like, or are you trying to post, you know, helpful information for your viewers to see? Are you trying to, you know, be informative? Or I've seen a lot of my friends on social media post a lot about their own political views, and also at the same time post a lot of health information on how to get resources. So I think there is that balance where, you know, you are sharing about yourself, the fun things, but if you are like more on the informative side, then, you know, you're semi sharing your opinions, and you're also sharing like I guess helpful information in terms of like health and well-being. I do want to say though, but when you know, I think everyone should have the right to express themselves. And I think that when you are sharing certain opinions, I think one rule of thumb is that, you know, you should be able to share those opinions, but make sure that you're being respectful about knowing that, you know, someone watching this might not agree with you. What is a way to communicate your opinion respectfully while also feeling like you're able to do that if that's something you want to do. And I think just trying to remember to be kind and be aware of that is really important. I also think that, talking about just also like, is your account private or public? And, we can kind of go into that on what difference does that make? Who are you following? Who's following you? I think if your account is public, then I think there's more of that sort of pressure to be more aware of that, of what's happening. But I do want to say, even if your account's private, if you post something out of line, the odds of that being, the odds of that being screenshotted, screen recorded, and spread around is very high. I've known cases and instances in high school where someone posted something completely inappropriate, and there's immediate screen recordings and it gets spread around. And but that was in high school, and they ended up getting actually suspended for quite some time. So even if your account's private, if you're crossing that line, it's still not good, and you should just, I think there's like inner work that needs to be done there. But having a public account is also something that I know a lot of my friends have, and it adds like another dynamic to it for sure.
Yeah, and I want to add that certain fields that you're in would put more restrictions on what you can post. Yes, like there is a lot of like some corporations, for example, have certain rules that you have to follow if you're an employee of that company. But at the same time, if you're in a specific field that's like more sensitive, like medicine, law, even, you're basically you need to be upheld to a higher standard, and so that's why this kind of joke that this person made, this video that this person at Mayo Clinic made, was extra inappropriate, because the field of medicine is a field that needs to be very, very welcoming to patients, and basically provide any means possible for patients to be comfortable, to share about themselves, to share like details about their body, and not be shy about it. And there are certain fields that you want to go into, you have to be more careful. Like for example, if you're a pre-med and you want to go into medical school, it's extra important to be careful about what you're posting. And this was something that, as you mentioned, like having a private versus a public account, there was a lot of discussion about that when I was a pre-med, and it's very important in those fields to either try to limit your, I guess, controversial posts as much as possible, and also to be on the safer side, make your account private, because as you said, it's not going to eliminate risk, but it's gonna lower it. I guess with that being said,
of course. I definitely wanted to say you're so right. That those type of fields, really, you need to try to gain trust with the community, and that's something you did mention, is that when you don't have that trust with like your patients, then over time, not only are you making the community, I guess, affects the community larger, but also over time, you're sort of building a reputation and a stereotype. So you may think that, okay, for example, that one student that completely crossed the line, that could end up making sort of a reputation or a stereotype that makes a lot of people uncomfortable, and that inability to trust. So I think it is important to sort of make that welcoming environment. And I also think that, definitely if you are in those professional fields, maybe limit those posts, or like, for example, I talked about those political opinions and views, and maybe it might just be safer not to step into that or do that. I think it takes a lot of just thinking about, well, what do I gain out of making this post, or how important is it to me, but also how important is it to anyone else watching this, and what is my end goal at the end of this. Like, I know, being a physician, one of my goals is to be able to help people, as much people as I can, and build that trust. And if I'm doing anything that, harms that in the future, then I need to reconsider those posts and activities and things like that.
To piggyback off the point that you mentioned about building a reputation, it's also important that we consider that, okay, maybe one post wouldn't on its own be a big issue, but once there is a pattern, that's when it becomes an issue.
Right.
If you're talking about, for example, partying all the time, if you're partying all the time, okay, that's your decision. But posting about partying all the time is going to build a reputation for you within your social community that's going to be hard to overcome. Everyone's going to see you as the person who parties a lot, and it makes things harder down the line if you want to be seen as the trustworthy person, the reliable person, the person who is very on top of things. At that point, it's better to not, even if you are drinking every day, not post about drinking every day or partying every day. So that's the one thing that I thought would be helpful as well, and the pattern being more important than just like one random post. So that basically like brings us to the question of if we had to use one metric to gauge if this is an okay post, is this an okay thing to like on, for example, Instagram shows you who likes what, for example. If this is an okay tweet to like retweet, what would that be?
I think sort of just thinking about, I guess the example that I used was sort of having your post be broadcasted in front of a large group of people. Would you be comfortable standing next to that like post, or would you feel the need to over explain yourself? Is also an aspect of maybe when you imagine it being displayed like that to a group of people, if you feel the need to explain or like have to like explain some part of it or anything like that, then maybe you should make some corrections on the post or sort of keep that in mind. But if you're able to stand comfortably in front of like a large group of people next to like what you posted, then I think that should be okay. I think that's like one metric for sure.
That's a very powerful way. I think that, like if you can stand in front of it and be like, yes, I posted this, and I'm proud of it, or like I'm okay with like sharing this opinion, that's a very powerful metric. And what I keep in mind personally is that if a future employer is going to see this, just like hypothetically in my mind, I'm like, okay, I'm in medical school, I'm going to be applying for residency, for example. The program director of the residency program, for example, imagine if they were looking at this. Would I want them to be looking at this? Would I be happy if they looked at this? It's that kind of metric and gauge that I use to assess whether or not I want to post this, or I don't want to post this. And yes, like here and there, like things get like fall through the cracks. It's fine, as long as there's no pattern. It's fine. But overall, I think that's a very good metric as well.
Yeah, I like that metric, being able to think about what your employer thinks, or someone who you want to always be professional around and really care about that, what you're showing them and what your presence is. For sure, I completely agree. I like that. That's a good metric to follow for sure. Yeah. Yeah. I also think it depends also on thinking about what your intention is, and then if you think you're doing a good job delivering that as well. So sort of like thinking more deeply about it.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think we touched on a couple of good points here and there, and also we shared a couple of stories that were definitely helpful as well. And I think this is going to be a very informative topic for students overall. And Thank you for being with us. This is Dr. Yaqubi from Sedaye Daneshjoo.